we step away from this paid work and this place where we've really anchored our confidence. Then we step into motherhood and all of that flips on its head. It's super high stakes. It's unfamiliar. You're not really always in control. And so you move from mastery to being a total beginner at home. All the measures we had of who we are, how we contribute, how we're successful have kind of been hit on pause. So you naturally feel really lost. How do we shift the narrative? It's the freedom to live the way you want to live. It's being able to rest when you're exhausted. It's being able to work in a way that supports your family and doesn't compete with them. It's being able to make choices out of desire instead of out of fear. Wealth isn't really a number. It's when money and your time and your energy and your values are kind of all pulling in that same direction. That's kind of how I describe that rich life.
Welcome back, Nap Trappers. I am so excited about today's episode. As many of you will know, I've been recording a little mini-series called Meet the Village while Beck is on a much-needed holiday. And today, I get to be very self-indulgent and talk to one of my favourite people, Betsy Westcott, who is a financial wellness coach, aka my life coach. And I wanted to bring you on today, Betsy, because I know, the profound impact you have had on my life and creating the life of my dreams after I've had children. But I want women to feel empowered about finances, building the life of their dreams, growing wealth, when as women, I think it's not something we really talk about, and you are so good at it. So, hi.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
So fun to be catching up with you. And also thanks for that intro. Like, hype girl, thanks.
Well, I tell everyone that you are my ultimate hype girl. So finally I get to repay the favor. So I clearly know who you are and can wax lyrical about you all day long. For the mothers listening at home, or for anyone listening at home, do you want to give a little intro as to who you are, what you do, and how you got into this space?
Yeah, so I am a financial wellness coach and I work with individuals, couples, and founders to help them master the mindset of money as well as the mechanics. So the mindset is not only how you think about money, but how it shows up in your nervous system, what are the rules and the patterns that you have around money, because they're ultimately driving how you behave and thus the financial outcomes that you achieve. And ultimately, I really want people to get clear on what does a rich life look like for you, should I say, and help you build a strategy to get you there. Because I want, your life to not only look good, but feel good for you as well. So I come from that very traditional banking background, came up managing bank branches. I was a private banker for a long time, which is a really fun style of banking where you advise very wealthy families and individuals. And I also have been in the fintech space, starting new banks and financial wellness apps. And I always thought that if I could master money, like learn how it works, how to make it, how to keep it, how to grow it, then that would be my ticket to financial freedom and having all that choice that I wanted in life. So, got the job in finance, got the qualifications around financial advice and mortgage broking and all those things. And I noticed for myself, and particularly also with clients, that even when you knew what to do with money, be that you had lots of resources available to you, really high quality advice, it didn't always lead you to making the best financial outcomes or building a life that felt really good. You might have a lot of assets or income, but you don't have good quality of health. You don't have good quality of relationships. You don't have any time because you're so busy making money. And I was like, something's missing. What is it? And that's why I really went down into the psychology and the behavior of money to help people build a life that feels, and I'm probably going to repeat this so many times on the podcast, but feels rich to you, because we default to other people's ideas of success and metrics of success, and they might be your metrics of success too, but let's just validate that and validate the way that you are making money and that you're spending money and that you're growing your money and building this life actually mirrors what feels good to you, so you don't die with regrets, basically.
I love it. No one wants to be on their deathbed thinking, I should have hired Betsy retrospectively. And I think it's a really important conversation to have because you may have one definition of wealth of what a rich life is. And then we are often incredibly humbled when we enter the postpartum period and the identity shift, not only from woman to mother or mother of many, but also from I had a career and now I don't. I'm on mat leave pay. What does that mean? Who am I at the best of times, let alone the potential financial shift and stress that can come up in that. So I guess when a woman becomes a mother or when someone becomes a mother, we know that so much changes at once. From your perspective and your experience with women and clients, what are the biggest identity shifts you see in new mums when it comes to how they see themselves, their work and their money?
I think before we become parents, we've got a very particular definition of who we are and how we go out into the world. And we've attributed our value to those things. And everyone's kind of unique. So I'll talk to my experience and you share yours too, Sally. But for me, I was like a hyper independent person and I really prided myself on my, my job and my career titles and the income that I earned and the fact that I could just take really great care of myself and I didn't need anybody. Because, and again, if we go back into my background, there's a lot of reasons that make sense. Come into motherhood, I'm not out in the world making my own money like I used to. My my title has certainly changed from, C-suite exec to mom.
Yeah. Oh, God, I know that bellow all too well.
Oh, yeah, don't we all? Probably just send a shiver down lots of spines.
Totally.
And, all the things that I had really anchored my identity to looked different and my time was different. And so it really can shake who we are and what we know of ourselves. And really feel a bit lost, a bit adrift. And that's the whole matrescence experience that people go through. And I think often it shifts our priorities. And
big time.
Yeah. And there's no one set of ways that it's going to shift your priorities. I'm not saying that people will become a mother and have no interest in their career. Your ambition doesn't get lost. Who you are doesn't get lost. It just evolves. And often that means that for you to be able to show up in the world the way that you want to, and be that in career, be that in parenthood, be that in partnership, might look a little different to how it used to. And often, in order to be able to honor that, there's very real financial decisions that need to come into play. And so in my practice, it's never about prescribing what someone should do, but I want to give them the tools and the knowledge that's going to enable them to be able to navigate this shift, this season, and all the seasons that are going to come after it really well, because in the absence of that, that's where we get stuck going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this work. Where to from here? And I'm like, no, let me give you the tools to really tap into who you are and what you want life to look like as an individual and in a family and in a relationship. Okay, cool. Now we've got that clarity. Let's talk about how we actually make that reality and build the practices and the rhythms and the frameworks to make that come to life for you so you can live well.
Well, I think that's because I had a different experience to you, but still had this huge shift that I had no idea what to do with, because I essentially thought my job, and I was very good at it and I enjoyed it, was a means to an end until don't you just marry rich? Don't you just marry rich and then you have babies and you become the stay-at-home mother, you become Martha Stewart. Although, to be fair, that's not she's a total
powerhouse
boss.
And work all the time. But but
mogul,
what she represented.
Exactly. And in my case, my husband goes off to work and brings home the bacon, and I really struggled all of a sudden with a lack of financial independence,
Mhm.
and not because I was being controlled or anything. It just
Mm-mm.
I had never not felt like I was contributing
Mhm.
financially, so my money didn't feel like my own. But
Mhm.
then also my idea around being a stay-at-home mother worked really well for different phases, and then I have a busy, creative, clever brain that would keep being like, "Remember me?" And that other thing you're really good at,
Yeah.
baby sleep, and that those business ideas that wake you up at 4 a.m., you should do something with that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, and I didn't know how to pursue it, and then it would get too hard, and then I'd stop and then be like, "Right, I'm going back to the default of the man goes to the work and the woman stays home." And so then we, full transparency, we work with you to sort of
Mm.
say, how do we get on the same, what do I do with these feelings? How do we get on the same page? We both came from incredibly different upbringings, and it then manifested in financial tension, like our
Yeah.
conversations around money were tense, and we're like, we're incredibly loving couple, we're happy, but we just can't get on the same page, and we cannot understand each other. And
Yeah.
you single-handedly helped us not only align in our values as who we want to be as individuals and business people, let alone parents, what we want for our children, how we want to spend our time, and what does wealth look like for us as our family, and being
Mm.
able to sort of shut out the FOMO and the stories that we bring into our relationships. And I think what I experienced, I often hear from women in my DMs, in my emails, in a sort of roundabout way of they've they money changes, and where we
Yeah.
spend our money shifts. And so going from being financially independent to suddenly on parental leave, working less or unpaid at home, how do you, as the wellness coach, a financial wellness coach, how do you see that impact someone's sense of wealth and confidence? And what would you say to the mum who feels like she's not contributing right now? Because
Yeah.
it's a really hard thing, because you are,
Mm.
but it
I was
doesn't
just
feel
about to say,
right
I'm
yet.
like, first of all,
Yeah.
don't you dare for a second think you are not contributing right now
No,
because,
but it's a really
yeah.
hard thing to reckon with.
Yeah, yeah. And it's because this labor is unpaid and
Mm,
therefore it's unrecognized often. There's a great, we should put it in the show notes actually, a great
mm.
article that was out recently from a publication called The Conversation, just talking about all this unpaid labor and what it would actually equate to if we put a dollar value on it. And it was $427 billion. This is just for the Australian economy. $427 billion. That's 9 zeros behind 427, like
Oh my God.
massive sum of money.
But it also doesn't surprise me.
No, absolutely not. What's so
But so
funny.
powerful to put a number behind it.
Yeah, and they looked at the number of hours that a woman on average contributes in unpaid labor and what that equates to in a dollar value. And for the average Australian woman, that is about $40,000. But you take that across the average, and we know
Mm.
there's peaks and troughs of our of the labor required at
Yes. Yep.
different seasons of life. So when I plugged in how much unpaid labor I do in my home as a mum of two who works 3 days a week. And it ended up being like $96,000 in addition to the salary I'm pulling in, which I like to, just present to my husband in
I was
some
going
of
to
our
say, I just can
conversations.
imagine, those scenes across the boardroom table of like, this is my,
Mm.
this is my worth here.
Yeah, here you go.
This is what I'm contributing, because I mean, that all makes sense, and it's so
Yeah.
huge, but that also doesn't pay the
It
bills
doesn't pay
or the
the
school
bills
fees,
though,
the
doesn't it?
childcare, the groceries.
Mm. But what it does is it reframes your sense of worth from
Yes.
being, I'm not contributing, I'm a burden, what I'm doing, like I'm on a holiday. You know how we call it maternity
Mm.
leave, like we're taking a break?
If only, if only.
Get me back to work, I'm exhausted.
A lot of women say that to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I totally get it. But
Yeah.
everything is okay. Whether you actually love being a stay-at-home mother, and it's
100%.
and maybe you don't want to go back to a career,
Mhm.
or maybe you did have a career you thought you would love being at home more, and like, get me out of here.
Yeah,
I think we also need to
that's
normalize that
okay.
all of these options are okay, and it's also okay that you go into having a baby with one idea and you can change your mind.
Oh, louder for the back row is what I would say. But yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is like the emotional wobble around
Mm,
it, going from being like, this is how I contribute, this is how I show up, to being like, I'm in this new thing, and all the metrics of how I measured my worth before might have been changed.
mm,
That's really normal to feel a bit wobbly about that. There's a change in identity. You might be feeling like you've fallen behind on maybe career or maybe on the finance contribution. Maybe your confidence is a little bit down because you're navigating this really new high stakes job you've suddenly
mm,
got. So just to kind of reassure you that like that contribution is valuable, and really looking at your household as a whole, like it's not, I'm doing this and you're over here and you contribute. It's like, how do we contribute to make this home work, to make this family
our
work?
life, our family, our
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah,
Yes.
because if you are the primary carer at home, you're actually enabling the other person to go and have a career. Their successes are built on the foundation of what you're bringing to the table on the home front. So
Mm,
please don't underestimate that. Um, and I think, just really acknowledge, own that, and, lean into this season of parenting while you're there. Um, use it as a time to have a powerful pause and go, okay, this is our new season of life. We're parents now. What are our priorities? What are our
mm,
values? What support do we need around us? What's essential to our happiness, and how do we make sure that our time, our energy, our financial resources are going towards those things as much as we can. Um, and yeah, and have those really profound open conversations with your family. Um, because yeah, one, your worth does not disappear when your pay slip does. Two,
oh,
what you're
yes.
contributing is incredibly valuable. And three, it's a whole household exercise
Mm,
raising a family. And just because the work that you're doing is not measured and often invisible doesn't mean it's not contributing. So find ways to make it visible,
mm.
because yeah, it's real work, and it's a real, like, all of the things from the mental load to the washing and the cleaning and the cooking, and depending how you divide that in your house,
Yeah.
it's labor, it's a tax on your time.
Quick pause. If you're finding this helpful, make sure you're subscribed to Nap Trapped. New episodes drop every week, and we cover everything from sleep regressions to daycare naps to night weaning. Head to naptrappedpodcast.com to subscribe and grab our free sleep resources while you're there. You'll also find our full episode library so you can search by your baby's age or the specific issue you're dealing with. One of the ways I see this manifest in the world of baby sleep, and
Mm,
I absolutely did this, absolutely, is that I saw my job and being up in the night as not as in need of support as my husband needing to have a full night of sleep to go off to work the next day, even
mm,
though I had to get up and keep a baby alive and a toddler and do all of these other things, let alone recover, breastfeed,
yeah,
plan Christmas, remember to pay like all the other things. And
yeah,
it's something that I often, and every option is okay. If that works for you and your family, rock it. It worked to an extent. And then I was like, I'm over here drowning.
mm,
Um, but I've sort of always seen that that doesn't count as work. My husband
yeah,
going off to work the next day absolutely counts, and that's
yeah,
contributing, but
mhm,
not me working essentially 24 hours a day for
nonstop,
months
yeah,
on end. And I hear it from families that I work with all the time.
mm,
Uh, and I totally get it. But I
mm,
think it's that great example of what you were just talking about of it's so easy to sort of become us and them
Mm-hmm.
and not value our true contribution as the mother or the stay-at-home parent because there's no paycheck.
Yeah, and there's so much historical reasons as to, why we did this. Like traditionally, only a generation or so ago, we did have that specialization, like one person made money and one specialized in
Mm,
home, and that was the expectation and the arrangement. But for many couples these days, that's not the dynamic, and there's often dual income households, but not dual split of running a household. So you see a lot of
yes.
women in particular taking on all the home responsibility and also some working or full-time work responsibility. And there's only so many hours in a day. You cannot do it all at the
No,
same time.
no.
So particularly if you're in a household where there is, two parents working full-time, part-time, whatever the dynamic is, you need to really have a conversation around, one, it's how we are running our household. It's our resources, and resources
Mhm.
is not just money, but it's time as well.
Yep.
And we have joint responsibility for our family and our home. And then how are we going to divide that in a way that feels fair and equitable and sustainable to us?
Mm.
I'm going to bring up one of my tools, but I know, Sally, this is a trigger for you,
Okay, here we go.
which is
Brace for impact.
Praise for Impact, the Fair Play card deck.
Oh, that ended in tears and not mine, might I add.
Look, there were tears the first time we did it, and they weren't mine either, interestingly. But it has been a useful tool to facilitate that
Mm,
conversation in my home around how do we take responsibility for and manage the tasks of
yeah.
family life and household
Yeah.
operations and financial operations. And, it was really revealing when we first divvied it up because particularly when my sons came along, because I stayed at home and took the first bout of parental leave, and they were physically so dependent on me, I
Mm.
became the default parent and the default homemaker, and all those tasks just fell to me. And that made sense for that initial period. But then now that we both have businesses and are working again, and the kids are not physically dependent on me, there is no reason all of those jobs need to be mine. And when we first divvied up the pile, there was a huge pile under Betsy.
Oh, for
Much smaller
anyone who
pile.
doesn't know the Fair Play game, it's a box of cards that have all the household tasks, like from taking the
Yeah.
bins out to the car registration to remembering birthday presents, the whole
Vaccinations,
vaccination, the whole
washing,
gamut of
cooking.
mental load.
Mm.
And I was actually really excited to do it. And my pile, and this, I'm not like, I have the most hands-on, caring, sensitive, dialed in husband, best friend,
Yeah.
disclaimer. My pile went up and up and up,
Yeah.
and his did not, but there was also always a justification of why that should be mine. And I also think we saw this definitely during the pandemic. I mean, not to like
Mm.
rehash, speaking of triggering,
Yeah.
but everyone working at home, and yet so many women around the world still had to
Mm.
do the homeschooling, still had to do this. And I think that's just a really almost on steroid example of what we're touching on
Yeah.
now, and
Mm.
then how important those conversations are, even if it ends in tears like ours. But I
Yeah.
still think about it. And in those times of, when we're at full capacity, I can go back and be like, oh, yeah, remember that? This is why I could feel like that. And how do we need to maybe enter this newer season? I have older children of
Yeah.
reevaluating and redistributing those unpaid things.
Running. Yeah. Sorry, you go.
No, I was going to say, I actually really want to talk to you about money stories
Yeah.
because as you were talking about, that we may go, how we may envisage life after we have children, I came from quite a traditional family, but I had no idea how that carried into my expectations, for want of a better word, after I had children. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a very comfortable, wealthy family, and my mother stayed home and my father went off to work, and he worked huge hours, and we lived a very comfortable life, and my mother did all the things. Her pile would have been
Mm.
so high from that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And both worked incredibly hard for us as a family, but that's what I thought would happen. And I think not only am I a different person, I have a different relationship, and that default mode that I kept trying to go back to because it's what I knew, it felt
Yeah.
safe, chronically didn't work.
Yeah.
And I have this beautiful relationship where we weirdly thrive in oversaturation. Like, if people knew how much time we spend, I mean, we literally run a business now together.
Yeah.
But I only figured that out with the help of you saying, I think this is less about a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how we've ended up not being on the same page, or
Yeah.
how we got here. And money stories was a huge part of that, and I had no idea what it was. So can you talk a little bit about money stories and how that plays a part for all of us, subconsciously or consciously?
Yeah. So money stories, is the rules and the patterns and the beliefs that we hold to be true about money and how it works in the world. And we have these not just about money, like we have them about motherhood. What makes a good or a bad mother, and what should I do as a mother to be a worthy, valuable mother? And so, you could apply this to all elements, but on the money side, it's the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs we hold to be true about money. What's really interesting about it is that it's largely formed at a very young age 7, according to research from Cambridge University. So, picture a 7-year-old. You might have a
Oh my God,
7-year-old.
that's my daughter. She's 7 next year.
Okay, so her beliefs about money are largely established already.
No pressure.
You're like, what have I passed on? She goes, what have I said?
I'm just going to give her your number. I've got like 6 months left to go until we're locked in at 7.
And so it's, how did your parents talk about money? Who made decisions around money? How did they react around money? What did they say about other people with money? What was allowed for us? What wasn't allowed for us? And all of these experiences accumulate to make little rules that help drive what we do around money and how we live our lives, from the careers that we pursue to how we partner and our expectations of a partner to how we spend and make money, or what we believe is available to us.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will be really helpful, actually. There's a lot of good going on there, but you'll have patterns that can be challenging you. They're either no longer congruent with the life that you want to live, and they're acting to like limit or sabotage you. And it's because they've been so long established. A lot of them are subconscious, and they make decisions on autopilot. So it's around how can we create some awareness around what are some of these things that are at play, honor what's really working for you and celebrate that. But for those things that are no longer serving you, no longer congruent, actively holding you back, sabotaging you, let's work on reframing them. So, what happens if we don't change this? How might we reframe this to something that's more empowering and aligned with the life that you're trying to build? And then how do we anchor that in practices? Because it's like a muscle. You've got to build up its strength and consistently come back to it so that it becomes your new, strong, well-worn neural pathway, and avoid you slipping back into the old default again.
So if it's been well established by the age of 7, I mean, for me, that's a long time ago now. How do we know, how do we tap into it? If it's been so locked in for so long and it's so ingrained and often subconscious for us all, where do we start being like, okay, I've heard Betsy and Sally talk about money stories. I'm sure I've got one. Where do I start to figure out what it is and how it may be impacting positively or negatively to my current situation and my new priorities and goals and desires?
Yeah. So it's all about trying to notice. So, okay, can you take a quiz that might reveal some of your money patterns or beliefs that are at play? And it could be beliefs like, it's unfeminine to talk about money, or
Mm.
rich people are greedy, or money's hard to come by. You got to work hard for money. There's just some really small examples.
Yeah, yeah.
You might want to do some journal prompts, and you can download some off my resource page if that's a place to start.
Great. We'll pop those in the show notes because that'll be really useful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then thinking about, what were the things I always heard about money? Like, what did mum always say about money? What did dad always say about money?
Mm.
How did they spend money? How did it feel to make money for the first time? Working with a coach like myself is a really great way to shortcut the discovery
Yes.
process.
Can vouch for that. Tell me what to do, Betsy.
Yeah. And to your point around observing how your relationship dynamic is really different to your parents and what you grew up with. So many of us are navigating that. And it's in absence of knowing what to do, we often default to what we've seen. But then what we've seen may not serve or fit with the age and stage and circumstances of life. So it's really having a little bit of compassion with yourself to go, okay, I'm trying to be a pioneer to build something different to what I grew up with. This is hard. So it's okay that it feels hard. Where can I get help and support? And also just get curious around, like, why do I think that? How might I do that differently? And just kind of giving yourself permission to try different things and maybe not get it right every time. But I think that self-compassion, especially in motherhood, is a under-celebrated trait because we just need so much of it in order to be able to evolve and do something different and to live better.
I also found it incredible. I mean, I think this was the turning point, and although there were difficult discussions that came out of it, is that I needed to understand my husband's money story and vice versa, and compassion for both, because I could take actually a lot of positives out of mine. There were definitely some things that have held me back detrimentally, but there were lots of things that I wanted to replicate, that I wanted to provide my children and myself with, because I knew what life could look like, but also understanding that not everyone comes from that experience. And that, I think, was the really pivotal moment where we could suddenly take what we wanted from that and understand each other better and then create our own.
Yes. And build that vision of the future, then align with the acknowledge of, like, what are our strengths, what are our challenges, and build money systems that really honor those differences and those strengths, so that then money feels aligned, easy, wealth feels inevitable. You've got the tools to evolve as, circumstances change and different seasons come in. But money then becomes a source of connection as opposed to tension and separation in the relationship. And that's helpful.
No, I was just going to say, I just heard you mention the word wealth, because part of that was then saying, hey, for us to live a quote unquote wealthy life, or a rich life, as you describe it, that also didn't always come down to money. It was, I wanted to be able to pick up and drop off. I wanted to be able to go on holidays together without having to open my laptop. There were so many things that weren't just money based that came out of it when we were designing our rich life, whereas I would have always defined wealth purely as a numbers thing, and then I also would have said, oh, but I don't do the numbers.
So
it's like, but I have all these desires, but I don't do you've
got to love the numbers.
Because I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Now, in terms of the 7-year-old thing, and maybe it's just extra pertinent because listeners, we all have young children, but also I've got an almost 7-year-old. If our kids are absorbing how we speak about money, success, work, what are some small shifts in language or behavior that we can make at home so that we model a healthy, empowered relationship with money for our children, or try and do it a little bit differently from how we grew up?
Yeah, so there's probably about 4 or 5 things I always tell
Oh,
people.
amazing.
So one is watch your language. So try to speak about money in a really neutral way, so not fearful, not shameful. So say, for example, your default when the kids are like at Kmart and they're like, "Mom, can I have?" Or
Mm.
"Dad, can I have?"
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "Oh, no, we can't afford that," swap that and say, "Oh, that's what we're going to spend our money on today."
Mm.
Or right now or something like that. So it's just a little bit more neutral from being we can't to we choose.
Yes.
And then so kids then learn it's choice. It's not scarcity. There's choice there. Let them see you have money conversations, ideally calm,
Mm.
open conversations about money. So because often when there's whispering behind closed doors
Mm.
and things like that, their little creative, amazing brain will make up a story about what's going on and what it all means. And that will
Yes.
then form the new money pattern. So instead, let them witness you budgeting. Planning holidays is a really fun one to start with.
Mm.
Saving and delaying gratification for things, and even let them see you negotiate. If you're buying something and negotiating a deal, let them be a part of it. I would say, just caution: try not to role model your money worries to them. That's a
Mm.
burden that they don't need to carry. But really, the more positive, healthy ones, like how I'm making decisions, how I'm allocating the money, how I'm renegotiating bills, and those really helpful lessons. And that will make money just be a part of life, which it
Mm.
is, and not have that sort of taboo, secret heaviness around it. A really powerful one is narrating, and I know you'll love this one, Sally. Narrating your values around your
Yeah.
spending. So saying things like, we spend money on the things that we value: health, learning, experiences, generosity, and really anchoring when you're making purchases or
Mm.
using your money to what those values are. And so that means that they understand, okay, money's a tool that helps me build a meaningful life. It's not
Yeah.
just a measure of worth.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned it before, but that modeling and that delayed gratification can be really helpful. So saying, okay, we've got this great holiday, we're going to pop some money aside for that. And that's
Mm.
where little tools when your kids are old enough, like Spriggy, where they can have their own saving pots, and little money spending cards is really helpful. You
We
know,
have
mm,
started doing pocket money for our
yeah.
children, but not for doing chores. Chores,
Mm-hmm.
we decided we're just sort of, like they're just
Par
part
for the
of
course in
running.
this family.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
agreed.
And to be honest, they don't have to do many things. But it was more about, okay, we talk to them about how do we make money. We go to
Mm-hmm.
work and we do our job, and their equivalent of that is some of the things that are non-negotiable. Like you go to school, you go to kinder, you do your swimming lessons,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And at the end of the week, they get $1 per age. So my daughter
Mm.
gets 6 and my son, well, he just got a bump up to 4. But there is a ledger
Yeah.
and they get their coins and they need to put one coin, or they can choose how much goes into investment, so a long-term thing, a
Mm.
saving, so maybe you want the new Gabby's dollhouse set up. Okay, you know how much that is. We're going to put that in there, and
Yeah.
whatever is left over is for you to spend or
Have
save or
fun
do
with whatever
whatever
you want
you
to do.
want. Because I
Mm.
think what I also hear from you, which may also be the experience of some of the listeners, is that you might be wanting to have different money conversations than what you heard as a child. I also didn't hear many money conversations,
Mm.
and that was very peaceful and blissful, but it also meant that I had a missed opportunity. It's true, no, like fault or shame. Like I lived a
Mm.
great life, but I didn't have a lot of the education around
Yeah,
money.
so
So that
adulthood's a
then when I
shock.
became adult, yeah, then let alone postpartum, oh gosh,
Yeah.
I almost felt like I was starting from scratch because I was like, doesn't it just appear?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
So I think that's also been a learning curve that I'm wanting to take into my family. Is like, oh, we actually need to talk about these
Mm.
things in a really age appropriate, family appropriate
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
as well as changing the style of conversation. I actually need to have them.
Yes. Yeah. Because think of it as like it's a skill set, it's an empowerment tool.
Mm.
And I actually see it often amongst clients that they do too much for their children,
Mm,
particularly financially, and um, they don't teach them how to make money. They don't teach them how to
mm,
manage money. They don't teach them how to grow money. And so when they get out of home, it's a rude bloody shock for them. And like, I
yeah,
don't want to do that. I want to set them up where it's just easy. And they're like, oh, cool. I know what to do. I've got confidence. I feel
mm.
capable. So yeah, I'm very happy to hear that you're doing that,
Great.
Sally.
And I think also acknowledging that this is such a moving feast. Like it's
Yeah.
as you said, we have to flex the muscle. We are constantly
Mm.
coming back to the values. Finances change, businesses grow. As you would say, money comes, money goes, money grows.
Yeah.
And I think, even the way that we're talking about money with our children, it will evolve. It's not just
Yeah.
a set and forget. It's a constant something that we're working on in the background all the time, and even doing the reevaluate, like, this is my money story that's showing.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, as someone who is like deep in this work, I
Mm,
still have to practice what I preach all the
mm.
time as, just new life experiences, new challenges. Sometimes something that I thought I'd kind of worked through as a bit of a money challenge crops its head back up again. I'm like, oh, okay, more
I
work
mean,
to
it's
be
not too
done.
dissimilar from sleep regressions. It's like, great,
Yeah.
nailed that, sleep
Good to
trained,
go.
everything's good, and then we've popped 3 teeth, and we're like, okay, no, we
Uh,
have to come back to the drawing board. So
yeah.
yeah, all of these things are a daily practice, aren't they?
Definitely. And the
Mm,
only other one I would add to things to role model with kids
mm,
is a little bit like watch the language, but just try to avoid gendered roles or gendered languages.
mm,
So, dad handles the bill, or mum's bad with money, or, dad's always so frivolous with his spending, or, mum has no idea what happens in the finances.
mm,
Um, you really want to model like we're a financial team, we make joint decisions, because that kind of role models that equality, that confidence, shared responsibility. Because the risk, for example, with the role modeling that you grew up with could have very well gone with like, oh, it's not feminine for me to handle money. My husband does that. Um,
mm,
and it's okay to delegate roles, but you always need to have that joint visibility
mm,
over your accounts, over the decisions, over the investments. Because if you hand over that control, if you abdicate from being engaged with your finances, you make yourself very vulnerable to having your life controlled. And that could crop up. Not everyone sort of goes to like, oh, and the relationship breaks down and then there's financial abuse. Like that's one extreme. It could
yeah,
be,
there's malice over there, and then
yeah,
there's just other manifestations of that same scenario.
yeah, like, we assume men are really great at making financial decisions. Not always.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
assume our husband is going to live a long and happy life. What happens if he
Mm,
becomes sick or disabled, and then you've suddenly got to figure out where everything is and there's no guidance there? Like,
mm,
it's just so important for the whole family's well-being that the two leaders of the family are across the finances and actively
mm.
engage with them, for whatever life might throw at you.
I also think there's probably a lot of listeners that might be like me, and maybe you might be similar, Betsy, that we're good girls, and talking about
Mhm.
money isn't very a good girl thing, and talking about desires that may
Mm.
cost something. And I think that's also something that's a muscle that I flex. I mean, not like brazenly, like out on the street or at school pickup being like, I love money, but it's just being able to reframe that
Mm.
it's actually really empowering to know the numbers,
Mm.
to have desires is okay. And I think particularly with a daughter, I'm like, okay, how can I model that too as a woman, where historically and not that long ago, as you were talking about, we couldn't have a bank account.
Yes, we were talking about this pre-podcast. So for the
Yeah.
for the listeners, I was sharing with Sally. I was asking another podcast recently, like, why do women have so many blocks around
Mm,
money? A lot of fear, a lot of shame, a lot of overwhelm. And I was like, well, first of all, let's just look at the history of money and women's access to money. And in Australia, so I'm looking. My mother is how old's mum? She's in her 70s, somewhere in
mm.
there. Can't remember exactly how much.
We'll
Don't
give a
tell her.
ballpark figure.
Roughly 70s.
Yep.
I'm in my mid, probably getting to late 30s. And, when my mother was in primary school, the marriage bar was lifted. So prior to the mid-1960s, if a woman was married, she could no longer hold a job in a public office because that wasn't allowed. Then
Yeah.
when my mother came out of high school and entered into the workforce as a nurse, if she wanted to apply for a loan then, it was only in the early 70s, a few years into her career, that she was able to apply for a loan without a male guarantor co-signing
Wild.
with her, be that a father or a husband. It was in 1984 that the Sex Discrimination Act came in that prevented workplaces from paying women less than her male colleagues for the same job, amongst all the other different discriminations that were there. That was around the time I was born. And it was only when I was in primary school that some further legislation came in, putting responsibilities on organizations to ensure that that didn't have happen. So if you look at our history, it's no wonder that we feel like money isn't for us, because we didn't have access to it and the workplace as much possible, and even the language of money is very masculine. It's a bull market, it's a bear market, and all the
Yes,
language
yeah.
that goes there. So um the a lot of these hang-ups, they aren't ours, and they're often
Mm.
really reinforced, but it doesn't mean they're true.
Yeah.
Money is for you. Wealth is for you. Women are great at managing money. Money is very simple to understand how to make, keep, and grow it. You don't need a special degree or to be some, specialist. I'm trying to think of the word, doctor or something like that is
Oh,
the
like a
word I'm looking for.
professional.
A professional, yeah. You don't
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
finance degree. Oh, see,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
probably need another coffee this afternoon. But anyway, it's for you. It's so
Yeah.
manageable, and it's a wonderful tool to not only create the life that you desire, but also create the world that you desire, support the
Yes.
causes that you care about, the businesses that you think are doing good work. So you got to love it, got to take care of it. And when you do, it'll love you back.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's part of, my role as a sleep consultant is to hopefully give parents knowledge and empowerment and tools, not to fix, not to tell you exactly what to do, although I like to do that too, but to help families and women and mothers take care of themselves and feel empowered and have the skills to follow through on what they want to achieve and get a great night's sleep. And so I guess, I could talk to you forever and we'll probably hang up and keep chin wagging for another hour.
No doubt.
But I guess for all of these incredible listeners sitting there nap trapped, maybe wrestling with some of these feelings and thoughts and confusion, if you could wave your magic Betsy wand and give everyone listening one belief about herself and her future wealth, what would that belief be? And what's one small action she could take this week to start living from that place?
It's probably repeating what I just said, but that is, wealth is for you.
Yeah.
And it's not for other people. It's not for later, not for like a different version of you. It's for you. You're worthy of it. You're worthy of the safety and the choice and a life that feels rich exactly as you are and in the season that you're in. You don't have to wait until you're out of this postpartum. So one small action, and I'm all about small actions. Often when we think about money, it's like this massive overhaul and all these things need to change. Like, no, progress over perfection. So maybe that is moving $20 into your savings, or if you have a mortgage, your offset account, or downloading one of those apps that gives you cash back when you're doing the everyday Christmas shopping or, grocery shopping.
Yep.
And that's contributing to your super and growing your retirement savings. Maybe it's actually writing down what you want life to look like, what's going to make life feel really rich and exciting for you. Setting up that money date with your partner is a good one. I must say, I really hope everyone does have like a regular practice around check-ins on money and just like household decisions with their partner, because in this season of life, having dedicated time to address those things rather than
letting it build and build and build.
Yeah, and having one of those like snarky reactionary conversations while you're trying to make dinner or get people to sleep. No, create the time and space.
Yes.
Have them.
Yes.
Life and marriage will be much better for it. And even maybe one of the things that you adopt is just a mantra that, like, I'm someone who grows wealth and it's safe for me to have money and my future matters. and just
Yeah.
tell yourself
Well,
that a
when
few
you finish
times.
listening to this podcast, there's some great wealth affirmations that I listen to on some of my hot girl walks. So you can definitely dial into those too
Perfect.
and just go into the day feeling confident about your new money story and the life that you desire. I think what you bring to the table so incredibly is the woo-woo meets the numbers. And for me, that's exactly what I've needed, because it's never just been about the spreadsheet or what's in the bank account. I knew there was more to it, and that is absolutely what you helped me tap into so that I could live the life of my dreams and continue to work and figure out what that looks like. So thank you so much for joining us. I have no doubt that there are empowered Nap Trap listeners all over the world ready to download the apps and have those conversations so that they can create whatever they desire.
Yes, I would love that for all of them.
Amazing. Well, we'll put everything we discussed in the show notes, and spoiler alert, go and work with Betsy. You don't need to shameless plug yourself. I'll do it for you because, as I said, you're a total game changer. Thank you so much for joining me today, Betsy.
Oh, my pleasure. And I just hope it helped in some little way.
Absolutely. Well, we will see you on the next episode of Nap Trapped. Bye. If this episode helped, there's a lot more where that came from. We've built a library of episodes covering every sleep stage and challenge, from day 1 through to the toddler years. Visit naptrappedpodcast.com to search by your baby's age or the specific issue you're tackling. Subscribe so you've got weekly support as things change. And remember, you don't need to figure this out all at once. One episode, one strategy, one night at a time.